Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Close Encounters podcast. In this episode, we'll be talking with podcaster Lee Taylor about his 30 plus years of research into ufology, the paranormal and conspiracies, which means it could get a little bit controversial for some, but I guess that's the point in them. There's very little that's off limits to us anyway, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we agree or disagree with everything that's being said. But before that, we'll have a look at my 4 favourite interesting news articles from the past week in That's What I Call News. And then just a reminder of our NIUFOS open day, which is coming up very, very soon indeed. And then it'll be rounded off by some of the celestial events in the upcoming week. So without any further delay, let's get into That's What I Call News. So That's What I Call News. It's my selection of the more interesting, weird and paranormal news from around the world. Let's go straight into BBC News. So a UK island gets recognised as being one of the darkest places in Europe. Now, this is great news if you're a sky watcher living in the area, because a small UK island has been awarded the International Dark Sky Sanctuary certification in recognition of it being one of the best places in the world to view the night sky. It's the first of its kind in Europe, and it means that there is very minimal light pollution to spoil the spectacular nighttime views, where the nearest source of light pollution is from Dublin, at over 70 miles across the Irish Sea. No, I never really thought anywhere in the British Islands would be dark enough, but this news article has since enlightened me. I'd show myself out, but I'm the one hosting the podcast. Let's move quickly on to Reuters.com, or as I like to say, Reuters.com. The Great Pyramid of Giza has given up yet another secret. Another corridor, previously unknown to modern archaeology, has been discovered near the entrance of the Great Pyramid. The corridor, at approximately 30 feet long, was discovered by using modern non-invasive methods, that is, infrared thermography, 3D simulations, and cosmic ray imaging, if I can remember correctly. I really should have notes in this one, but they used these methods to peer inside the structure. It's sounding all very futuristic, isn't it? And there's no doubt that this wouldn't be out of place on board Janeway's USS Voyager. If there's any of you Trek fans out there, it's hoped that this discovery, aided by the previously mentioned methods, will lead to further discoveries of passages and chambers. It seems that the Great Pyramids of Giza, I was going to say Pisa there for some strange reason, the Great Pyramids of Giza have are still harbouring many more secrets ready to be discovered. And I do follow Egyptology very closely indeed, so that was very interesting. UFO has been sighted in the Irish countrysides last week. This has come from WIOnews.com. The island of Ireland is certainly no stranger to unexplained aerial sightings, that is for sure, and this just adds to the several accounts reported there annually. So an unidentified resident in Ballymahon in County Longford in the Republic contacted a local news agency to report his account of a case of nocturnal lights. I guess it's the best way to describe it if we're using the Heineck classification system. The witness describes the presence of 3 lights which were in a triangle formation, each light orange in nature, and at each point of what is described as a triangular-looking craft with a black body. Curiously enough, though, the Irish Aviation Authority can't confirm any aircraft were in the area at the time, so this leaves the incident as of yet unexplained. It would be interesting to see, actually, if there are any airfields around there, military or civil, and of course the geographical makeup of the local area. Very curious indeed. And finally, new evidence suggests that humans were using steel tools long before steel was discovered, in quotations. This comes from the Journal of Archaeological Science. The quote, Graham Hancock again, just like in the last episode, stuff just keeps getting older. And this time, new evidence suggests that humans were using steel tools long before it was widely believed that they had been discovered, by at least a millennium. So it seems that even history books themselves become obsolete very quickly and need to be rewritten constantly. The discovery comes as geochemical analysis of intricate carvings found in stone on the Iberian Peninsula suggest that they would have needed steel-forged tools in order to achieve this. I think mainstream science and archaeology need to have a rethink on how we regard ancient civilizations, because it seems that they aren't as soft as they would like us to believe. Interesting stuff indeed, and as always, links to each of the stories can be found in the show notes for this episode for you to read at your leisure. And now, at that, let us speak with this week's guest. So, this week's guest has been researching the UFO phenomenon for well over 30 years, along with conspiracy theories and fact. He is a co-host of the NASA podcast, that is Never a Straight Answer podcast, for over 3 of those years. And in this episode, we'll discuss conspiracy theories and explore some of the theories that have been proven to be true or have since become fact. Lee Taylor from Manchester, how are you keeping?
Yes, not too bad. Welcome. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. I'm glad you come onto the show, because one of the things when it comes to these sort of podcasts is a lot of people sort of stay down the one lane. They'll either stay down purely paranormal or stay down the pure UFOs. But one of the reasons NIUFOS was founded was to bridge the gap between the metaphysical side of ufology plus the physical side, and explore some of the conspiracy theories as well. And from when I've been looking for guests, you definitely checked all the right boxes, and it sounds like you've got the expertise that we need today, and I'm really excited about talking to this. It can be a bit controversial for some people, can't it, really?
It can. Thank you for stating that. It's just been one of them things that since a young child I was interested in, and no one seemed to be looking at and not actually giving any answers to questions that people would have been given back then.
I know, yeah. I mean, people always have like a turning point when it comes to things like that. So, like I've said, you've been studying UFOs and conspiracies for the last 30 years, and you've just said that you had become interested as a child. You started, looking into it as a child. So, what was there a turning point in your life, either through experience or a chain of events, that was your awakening moment, where you realized, hold on a minute, something isn't quite right here?
I think it was a lot of people was avoiding the questions, because I don't know why. I look into sci-fi films, and then try and work the stuff out myself. If could that happen? Is it true? And then you had some people out there who was actually bringing out books on certain conspiracy theories, certain UFOs, and ghosts and legends, but questions were brought up that no one was actually answering, but the questions was still the same question over and over and over again. I mean, it's only been the last 10 years, something like that actually people are starting to wake up to reality, to be honest. But beforehand, people who were looking into UFOs, ghosts, and that were kooky, or they were a bit, you're mad, you're crazy. But if you have a question and you don't get an answer to it, why wouldn't you try and find that answer to the question?
Yes. Any sort of investigative journalist with any ounce of credit or integrity should be probing a lot of the questions that has been asked by a load of different people. Whether the concerns are legitimate or not, it is the duty of a proper journalist to actually get to the bottom of these things. Like David Icke, for example, he's probably one of the most controversial conspiracy theorists, or at least that's how he's described out there. And the moment you mention conspiracy theory, a lot of people always conjure up the infamous David Icke interview on the Terry Wogan show, and that's what they that's the sort of framework that they judge other conspiracy theorists with. With that one sort of incident with David Icke on Terry Wogan, and even since then, David Icke has been like, I was just going through an awakening process. There's a hell of a lot of stuff going on. I didn't really know who I was at that point. He was sort of confused. Would you sort of agree with that? Was that you at the start whenever you first
Oh yeah, confused because there's so much information, which I'm sort of glad now because through looking over the last 30 years of the subjects, that you can actually see connections. See, I like to try and connect the pieces together, and it can take years. It can take tens of years before you get the little piece that connects to something you found years ago, and you're like, oh, actually, that might actually work together. And then if you find other pieces connecting to that, it seems it's a jigsaw that's in a 3D world kind of thing.
It is, yeah, and there's many pieces that are deliberately created to throw into
Yeah,
the works to throw people off. Now, interestingly enough, the last weekend, whenever I was at home with the girlfriend, she bought this 1,000 piece jigsaw puzzle of dog breeds. You can get them in large supermarkets around the UK.
yeah.
And we were finding pieces in there that were extra pieces, extra puzzle pieces, and it's interesting because it sort of made me think of your analogy there, where there's all these different pieces, and we're sort of thinking, what pieces do we actually need? What pieces do we not need in order to get the bigger picture, which doesn't throw us off?
Well, yeah, I think that that's the most difficult part on actually it's not finding the information, it's seeing if that information's true. And there's a big difference between conspiracy theory and conspiracy facts. And there is a lot of conspiracy facts out there, but a lot of people keep it under the thing of conspiracy theory.
It's a great tool. It's a great phrase used
Yeah,
by mainstream media, and
created
if you
by the
subscribe to
CIA.
this theory, the global cabal, to
Yeah,
ridicule you, to throw you off the sort of off the scent. It's
totally.
fantastic.
And especially now, I mean, especially over the last year alone, it's grown even bigger, about three times as big as it as it has done on UFOs alone, because more and more people are spotting stuff. But even the media are not doing what they should be doing realistically, because they're doing their own stories. But if you have a really compelling story, but is in the conspiracy or conspiracy realm, then they don't tend to go to it.
Or they don't
Which,
treat it seriously. They like one of the things that we always get,
mm,
ufologists, for example, when it comes to reporting on UFOs, you always get the X Files music playing in the
yeah,
background, and always references sarcastically or jokingly
yes.
to little green men. So I would imagine it's the same within the world of conspiracy theory and fact, of course.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Totally. I mean, there are even books out there now with conspiracy facts on certain things, but still in the mainstream, it's still conspiracy theory, where there's actual facts and documentation to actually go against it. But I think that's more to do with the government and the authorities that are actually don't want us to ask them questions that they don't that they think that, like, if they tell us that like we go ape over.
Yeah, or to lose control
Yeah,
over the populace, because you see this meme floating around Facebook and other
mm,
social media platforms where there's a politician at a pedestal standing on a plank over a cliff,
yeah,
and there's a crowd of people on the other end of the plank, supporting them from stopping over the edge. And it takes one person to walk away, and then others to follow, and
yeah.
then they lose the hold over the power and influence over the people. And you realize where the power actually lies is with the people.
Oh, well, yeah, yeah, true. Because when I started looking into UFOs and conspiracies and what's really true out there and not, it actually brought me into looking into things like science. It brought me into space and the way people see things, the way the mind works, our energies within us. In case, and then it even brought me now into law. I've been looking quite a lot into law in the last 5, 6 years into what is actually true and what isn't true, as in our freedoms, or yeah, because it's supposed to be God, man, government. But as it stands at the minute, it's God, government, man, which is the wrong way round. Which then they've got that power, which then they can use that power to try and, well, keep us busy for one. Because if we're busy, we haven't got the time to turn around and look at the actual society. To be honest.
No, I mean, I can vouch for that quite well actually, because in my younger years I used to be a magician, and one
All
of the
right.
ways to execute a magic trick is obviously distraction. And to keep people distracted from where you want them to look, you need to keep them busy somewhere else. So if you need to do something with your hands, for example, like let's just say you've got a deck of cards and you need to do what is called double lift, which is basically lifting two cards off the top as
Yep.
one. In order to sort of execute that, you become more focal, or you become more animated with your face, so people are looking at your face and they don't really watch what you're doing with your hands. So misdirection is the term I'm
Yeah,
looking for,
yeah,
really. Yeah.
true. And papers have been doing this for generations because it's the case of don't look at the big articles, look at them little small articles that like are in the corner because they will have the more important information there that will be not just gratification of as you know, people read papers and look at entertainment and that, but it will give you more of a truth than the basically the full lies in front of you with the big spread.
A lot of people are thinking that the recent UFOs in America that were allegedly shot down, the Chinese balloon and what have you, a lot of people
Oh
think
right, yeah,
that that was a massive distraction from other
yes,
things that were going on. What do you think of that?
yeah. I've got to agree with that. The first one that was shot down was Chinese balloon. But the one that was shot down in Canada and the one that was shot down in Alaska, there's some stories coming out about the pilots turning round. A pilot had turned round and stated that he couldn't work out how the vehicle moved. He couldn't work out how the object. It didn't have no exhaust or any kind of propulsion. He needed to work out the propulsion, and he couldn't not work out what propulsion it was. Plus, it was lower as well. It was, I think, 20,000 feet instead of the 37 that the balloon was at. And then in Central America as well, the FAA closed down certain areas as well, believing that there was another balloon there, but nothing really come out of it. They ended up opening the airspace, and nothing else has been said about it.
Well, I
So it was
understand.
possibly for
Yeah, I understand that the Americans had reduced their radar sensitivity, so they weren't able to pick these
yeah.
objects up for quite some time. So we don't know how long it's been going for. But now that it's come out now, a lot of people are even suggesting that um, the release of this information suspiciously coincided with the release of the Epstein files. Is there any merit of truth to that theory at all? Do you know?
Oh, yeah. I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Like we were saying before, as soon as something big comes up, something's well, they're two big stories if you think about it, but they all went on to one story
It's a
and
massive
forgot
distraction.
about the other story.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
the same as the computer for President Biden's son had. All the papers were saying, no, no such thing, blah, blah, this, that, all the news. No, we're not talking about it. But then there's proof that's been coming along, and the proof said that he did actually have one, and he did have information on there, and the information should be coming out, but it won't. Same with the Epstein. Epstein was so intertwined with the underground government or the special government that he's they don't want his secrets. How come no one else on that list has come forward or been talked about? Yet it's a man who's been charged and then supposedly suicide in his prison cell, and yet his second in command, Maxwell, she's been sent to prison for nearly 30 years, but then there is no one else who's going down as well, even though people have been questioning. Well, all right, we've got the book, or there's possibly two books actually. We've got the book, we've got the list of people. Why haven't you done anything about it? But then I've also heard that the FBI have lost tapes and books that were put in their safe, and then for one reason or another, all of a sudden they disappeared. Now, how can you have something like that disappear?
Yeah,
That's totally secure.
for a world class crime investigation
Yeah.
branch, and they are pretty careless with a lot of the sensitive files that they've got. And when you say books, a couple of books reference the Epstein case. These are the flight
Yeah.
logs, I believe, are they?
No, these were the listings because apparently there were a number of tapes that were found. There was a one book. It turned out one black book, but then later on, someone actually found another book with his details in there and other details. But the flight list, I believe that come off a separate page. That was separate, but the list of people on that piece of paper is shocking, to say the least. To be honest.
You'd be very surprised. Anyone listening to this, I would recommend that you do go online, preferably not Google, because even they're complicit, from what I understand,
True.
the stuff that I've read, in hiding
Yeah.
these things. And you'd be very, I'm not going to name any names at the minute,
No.
but I would suggest take a look, and you will be very surprised indeed, even shocked at some of the names that are on those lists. It's a very complex subject, the Epstein files, but we'll go on to something perhaps a little bit more simple. So in one of your podcast episodes, you focused specifically on British conspiracies. What are some of the most obscure or strangest British conspiracy theories?
Well, there's quite a few from crop circles. There was Cornwall, I believe, a crop circle designed, like a piece of, when Voyager went into space, they put a plaque on there with like, this is
It was
our
a
genetics.
golden
this
disc, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, someone had actually planted one out about Earth, and within exactly to the day, a year later, uh, there was one that was planted there for aliens, which was an interesting one.
That was
Because
was that in the sort of in a field beside one of the radio telescopes that was involved in transmitting other messages out into space, if I'm correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, a lot of people think that crop circles are done by people, but then there's certain things there that actually proves that it can't be people. Like on corn, you got like a little nodule, like a little kneecap in between, and it's very hard to like crush. Even if you smashed it with a hammer, you'd have to do every single one. Now, intense heat bursts them. Now, that's one of the proofs on if you ever want to have a look at a field and see if it is a crop circle. That is one of the heightened proofs to suggest that it is something else and not a man in a field with a stick.
And also, sorry, go ahead.
And also underneath the way the curve in each other as well. I mean, if you flatten down corn, then you're flattening it in a certain way. But the way these ones seem to be, it's intertwined where it would take you years to even attempt to do a half a field. it would take you years to do. So within a night, it turns up like that. So there has to be something else
Yeah,
than
it certainly
someone
makes
else.
me think. One of the episodes of Ancient Aliens, the aliens guy, as everyone knows him, Giorgio
Mm.
with the crazy hair, and one of the
Oh yeah.
episodes, he and a team of other people, not too far from Stonehenge, I believe, were able to sort of replicate a crop circle, but it was rather crude. You could just tell there was something a little bit off about it that was perhaps man-made. But
Yeah.
one of the crop circles I went to last year with a friend of mine, actually, we recorded or we streamed live on our Facebook page from the circle, and it was near Devizes, just outside Devizes, and the EMF reader in that area was spiking in certain areas of that field where the crop circle was. By the time we got there, the farmer had cut a lot of it down, but the outline was still there, and so was perhaps some of the energy as well. So that could indicate what, maybe ley lines or something, or earth energies.
Oh,
I don't know.
I actually last year, at the end of last year, I was looking into a possible connections with UFO and ley lines as well, because there's a possible. It seems that it might be that the ley lines are the lines that they fly through, as in use. Something come to me the other, like, the end of the year, and I was looking at something, and it's I think there is a little connection there. I don't know exactly what yet. 'Cause I'm still looking into it, but I think there is a slight connection in the ley lines to unidentified flying objects.
I believe that there is, from the research that NIUFOS has done,
Mm.
ley lines and even connections where there's granite. One of the best areas in Northern Ireland for granite mountains is the Mourne Mountains, which is not too far from where I grew up as a child. And even I can vouch for, there's some sort of connection between there, whether it's natural energy that is used by interdimensional beings or UFOs, I don't know. But we'll move on to another question, actually, because this one's
Yeah.
just popped into my head. So there's some conspiracy theories out there that suggest that the world is marching towards a one world dictatorship where every aspect of our lives will be controlled. Are we currently seeing it being rolled out now? Because there's so much talk of
Yeah.
cashless societies, social credit scores, and even an agenda for 2030 with a well-known phrase, "You'll own nothing and be happy." Are we seeing this
The
happening?
World Economic Forum. Yes. Yes. It's been, the thing is, I've looked quite in depth into this, and a it's been a long road. They've done this since the beginning of the 19th century, and it's deliberately, step by step, bit by bit, convince, move on. And the thing is, a couple of years ago, there's a group called the Alliance, and they are trying to actually get rid and stop what the Illuminati and the cabals and that the deep state are trying to do. They're putting their foot in, basically, and trying to stop them. And there was communications between the cabals to each other and stuff like this, and they were being caught left, right, and center. So they were doing their own thing of they went on a computer game. I believe it was Star Wars Command, and
Oh, that
it
was an
was
awesome
their
game.
last be able to communicate to each other before things got even worse, to be honest. And within the statements of there, it said that we had to move 12 years faster. So I think the reason why you're seeing a lot of things now is because they've had to push that 12-year gap and quickly close it before 2030, because by law, under the UN, under every single country, by 2030, every single person has to have a digital ID. So basically, you can be controlled. That's your first step. And we've got a new thing in England as well. It's called the 15-minute city that they're bringing in everywhere. And with that 15-minute city, that means that I will be able to travel 15 minutes away to a borderline. I cross that borderline, but I can only cross that borderline, let's say, 50 times within a year. If I do it any more than that, I'll be fined. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because the thing after that, it will be you'll be getting less. You won't be allowed to go out even more. So you'll be restricted into certain areas, which if they restrict you into certain areas, they've got more control. And I think a part of the pandemic was that it was a test to see how we would actually respond to this. And I have heard the next pandemic is 2025, supposedly.
Sounds about right. Well, we didn't have enough of it last time. I suppose may as well give us another one for 2025. Absolutely
This one's
ridiculous.
going to be slightly different, because there's if you go on YouTube, there's a thing called Event 201. And with Event 201, it was Bill Gates Foundation and a few other foundations got together, brought a lot of companies together, like banks, delivery companies, like process companies that make food or parts for vehicles and that, and sat them in the room and stated, right, if COVID-19, which this is exactly what they said, if COVID-19 hit tomorrow, can you control it? Will you be able to do business how you could? And the end up result in October of 2029 was that 65 million people would die, and we would have they would have less control, but then they can move in to control certain areas, like what they're doing with the farmers at the minute. Like in Denmark, they're trying to get 3,500 farms. They're trying to buy the land, so we can't use cattle, but we can use insects, which they've already been putting in our foods already.
They have actually, and celebrities have been endorsing it as a new sort of staple to our diet. But it sounds a hell of a lot like a paradise for Stalin, or other sort of communistic sort of thing. I mean, it's happening in China at the minute. I mean,
China is the example of what they want to do. Then you've got places like Canada at the minute, which they're putting their foot down. Australia as well, but Australia are being a bit more easier than Canada. I think Canada's the next one to actually have a big pushback, I should say.
It's funny you should say that there, because I was having a conversation not related to conspiracy in any shape or form with a friend earlier, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to move to Canada. I think it'd be great." And I'm like, "You're absolutely crazy, man." Have you actually read what's been happening over there?
Yeah, that was Canada and Australia were the two places that, if I weren't in England, they would be the two places that I'd love to live, but not no more. Not no more.
No, not anymore. I think New Zealand, even then, that's a bit sketchy over there.
Well, this is the thing. The rich, this is where the rich are moving to New Zealand and Nevada, and Texas as well. Because basically, there's been bunkers designed there. There's been a whole lot of bunkers been designed for if anything goes wrong.
I think they're expecting something to go wrong from what I understand. Because again, I'll mention this YouTube channel again. There's a huge YouTube channel called Suspicious Observers. And he talks about the potential incoming, not extinction level event, but catastrophic level event. And he says that a lot of the global elites, do you think it's not do you not think it's a little bit weird where they're building space rockets, to sort of get off and bunkers near these places? He's a really good content creator and he's been running for years now. I mean, I started following and just his channel in the run up to 2012, whenever everything was meant to be going nuts back then.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But there were certain things as well that caught my eye the last couple of years, like 2020, around about then, that a load. I mean, nearly every country who has the capability to fire a rocket up into space did it. Everyone was on the case of, right, we've got, for some reason, we have to be in space by 2024 for some kind of reason. There is something happening within 2024, by my reckoning, from the way like Elon Musk's been talking, and the way other space companies have been talking about as well. And it seems like, I don't exactly know what it is, but something between 2024 2025, there's something's going to go wrong. Don't know exactly what it is. It could be the pushback that we actually push back, because like England, if, like, for these digital cards, we put in, how many times have they tried to push it on? They must have tried to push it over the last 10, 20 years. They've pushed it around about 6, 7 times, and we've said no all the time.
It certainly did,
Now
and
a
even the
lot,
European Union were trying to do an EU-wide
yeah,
identification card as well.
yeah, and the thing is, it's just it. Soon as I tell you what, soon as we get one of them digital IDs, you've lost your rights. I'll tell you that right now. You will lose all your rights as a British citizen, because in Britain it is contract law, which you can, which is like, we're having a conversation. You've stated your name, I've stated my name. It's joinder. So whatever we've agreed, we're in a contract now. We're talking. We're deciding now. If you bet something to me now, and I take on that bet, you lose that bet. You have to give me that. If you don't give me that, I can take you to court and get it off you anyway.
I suppose that strays into the realms then of verbal contracts
Yeah,
and all that
and
sort
it's
of
down
stuff.
to names as well. It's down to legislation you don't have to abide, which that's all, everything that comes from the Parliament. But common law you do have to abide by, which there's only about like 16 laws, and that's like, rape, pillage, that kind of, the serious stuff. But the way they get around it is your name. Once you mention your name, you've started a contract, basically.
Now, that's something
So,
I
like,
didn't know. I knew there was stuff about, like on your birth certificates and what have you, they capitalize your name, because then you
yes,
become
you're a business.
you're a business or something like that. That's
Yeah.
what I remember, and it's a very big thing in America at the minute, especially whenever they were talking about the gold trim around the American flag represents that they're under British law of the sea or something like that.
Yes, yeah. Legislation is sea law, basically, and that's why some of it sounds. That's why you have birth certificate. That's your cattle certificate. That's your board, basically, and you. It starts at the age of 7, because if you get lost at sea, you've got 7 years. If you're not found within 7 years, you're considered dead. So it's called the straw man. So there is two of you. There are the straw man and the businessman. The straw man is you, free to do whatever you wish to do within the confound of certain laws. And then there are business laws, which make it that that, like, if you write in capital, if you write in black ink, you're writing in business law. If you write in red ink, you're writing as a living person. If you're writing black ink, you're writing as a dead person. So the business side of it is you're dead, basically. And then there's other rules around it that get away. It's like your car. Your car is not yours. The DVLA actually own your car. You're the only you're registered keeper. You're given a promise that you will pay tax, MOT, and insurance on it. Yet you can only be called it can only be called a car if it's used for business. If it's used for just driving to your friends and stuff like that, that's a private conveyance. That actually means you don't need tax, MOT, and insurance.
I
And
think if
people,
people read their sort of their V8 books, is that what they are, very carefully, that they get anytime they get a new vehicle, I think it does say on it now, and now that you say it, and it's
yes,
just popped
at the
into my
bottom
mind,
it's
you are the registered keeper. It doesn't
keeper.
say that you're the owner.
Yeah,
I've
you've
never
actually
noticed that
give your
before.
rights up for that car to the DVLA and promise them that I will pay tax, insurance, and MOT. And that's a kind of thing how the police can actually set against you as well, because that's the only place apart from an airport where you have to show your name. And if you show your name, you can show your name, but if you say it, then it becomes a contract. And if you listen to the actual officer if he arrests you and gives you your rights, you have the right to remain silent, your right to turn you. If you say anything, do you understand? That last sentence means if you say yes, that means you stand under the officer. So now the officer has full control of you.
Hmm. So sometimes playing ignorance is probably your best thing to do. Listen,
Yeah,
we're running out of time quickly. I could talk for ages about this sort of
same
subject
here,
because,
to be
like we
honest.
said before we started recording, conspiracies and the sort of like there's so many rabbit holes to things to go down, and I think I might
Oh
actually.
yeah,
I'm serious when I say this. I think I'll get you back on another episode to talk a little
yeah.
bit further, maybe more about the British law and other stuff that you've been talking about to explore a little bit further. But in the interest of time,
Hmm.
a question that's burning in my mind,
Yeah,
for someone who isn't really following conspiracy theories, or even for the skeptic, or
yeah,
those who are willfully ignorant because of how extraordinary some of the
yeah.
conspiracy theories are, why would a global elite want to do all this? What could they possibly gain out of this? And what is their end goal?
Power, greed, and control. That's it. The main goal. Power. So they can do whatever they want to you. I mean, the price of a person is cheap now. It is dirt cheap, basically. There is enough of us on this planet. I mean, slavery has never been so large. There's what UN's last report: 4.9 million people are enslavement. Never been so big. Yeah, but I must say to the viewers, like, if you look into, be careful. If you're looking into the rabbit hole, like, read and take in what you're learning, but step back from it after a while. Review what you've learned. You don't have to believe everything. I tend to put it into two categories: possibly and yes. That's the two categories I do. But I'd like to step back for a little while, consider what you learned, put it into the context that you believe in, and then if you wish to step back into it, but like, please just give yourself a break every now and then, because it can be overwhelming and it can be scary sometimes as well. And really, if we all get together, it should be a piece of it should be easy to deal with
I'll
if
finish
we
the
all get
sentence for you.
together.
It should be a piece of piss. I totally agree. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I totally agree. And
yeah,
yeah, you do need to sort of step back
yeah,
and sort of assess things. Because I was, you can become so engrossed in it, as I learned back
oh yeah,
in 2012, which leads me on to my next question, actually, because I've always been on the middle ground when it
yeah,
comes to conspiracy theories. Because quite frankly, I learned my lesson to listen to conspiracy theories with a little bit of caution
yeah,
after the conspiracies of 2012, like the end of the world, things like Comet Elenin. A lot
oh
of things
yeah,
that were said that were going to happen didn't happen. And over the
yeah,
years, I always hear people asking me to show them evidence of conspiracy theories. And one of the examples I always use is
hmm,
Operation Northwoods. Go and take a look at Operation Northwoods so you can see what the CIA were planning back in the sort of
yeah.
60s. But what are some
Paperclip.
other examples or conspiracy?
Paperclip, Project Paperclip, Mockingbird. Mockingbird's a good one. Project Mockingbird was, and it was put onto under different names, and it's still used today. under different names. But basically, what the CIA did was walk into an editor's office with a bag full of money and go, bang, this, don't do this story, do this story, don't do this story. And it persisted from then, and it continues to today, to be honest, because like for the British media, there are 6 people who own all the British media, and they're all in the powerhouse, and the powerhouse is are not going to give us the info that could take them down. But the news is actually supposed to be there to inform the public and the people, and they do in a certain way, but they don't do it in the way that it used to be done,
I certainly don't. I
which
mean, the
was
BBC has
honest.
lost all credibility over the years.
Yeah,
Particularly, I don't want to stray too much into politics because NIUFOS
yeah.
isn't about that. But when it comes to the sort of Brexit scenario, you
hmm
could really see where the colours lay with BBC because they were totally unbiased
Oh yeah.
when it comes to
Well,
covering that.
I think it's the same with Trump as well. As soon as Trump got in, every day he was like Princess Diana, because Princess Diana was in the papers every single day, nice things about her. But like Trump, every single day, nice bad things about him. But if you actually go over to America and actually speak to the Americans, and uh, like there was I saw a really compelling interview actually of a black man who stated that he wasn't racist, and the reason why he wasn't racist is because if you were in New York in the old days and you're a black person who wanted to set up a business, the banks themselves would tell you go and see Donald Trump. They would go in and see Donald Trump. He would have a look at your info, and then your info, if it's if it's a business that he reckons that you can do it, he will give you the money. You go away, you come back 6 months later, and if it was a successful business, he'd tell you to keep your money, go away, and continue with your business. Now, how does that contribute as someone who's racist? If anything, if he was racist, he would have done totally the opposite. If anything, I think he's a people fighter, and he was trying to fight basically the deep state, which he did do a lot of things. And I'd say the most proudest thing I think he ever did was the first day in the office. He set up a squad to hit gangs of paedophilia, basically. And I've never seen like a president's desk so full of paperwork on his first day as well. He was actually someone who was doing something, not talking the talk. He was walking the walk, and look what happened for doing it. I hope he runs again, to be honest.
There's a lot of people out there that said that he will, and there's evidence to suggest that he will. He just needs the support now of the Republican Party, and I think if
Yeah,
I would imagine that if he did run again, he would probably actually do quite well. Because even whenever I went to the States, whenever he was
yeah,
president, he was very well liked, and I'm talking. I went to Nevada, Arizona, I was in Texas as well. And I was even in the little blue state, the little blue pocket in Texas, which is Austin. And
yeah,
even there, a lot of people were quite fond of Donald Trump, despite it being the little bit of blue that
yeah,
was in a red state. Final question,
yeah.
actually. So, over the years, you've researched this topic.
hmm
You're quite well versed in it, and you're well knowledgeable just by listening to the conversation that we've had. So, from your point of view,
Yeah.
what do we have in store for us over the next couple of decades, and who's involved?
You had to answer that one. That's possibly a scary and difficult one, because it is basically down to us. It is down to us to not accept what is being uh, uh, put to us. But the problem is, I mean, there are a lot of people now opening up, but the question is there enough? Is there enough people to turn up and say, hold on, no, 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 this is wrong. This ain't the way it should be. Because soon as they get that power, that's it. We've lost. We won't be able to grab that power back. And every single man, woman, and child is free in this world, and don't anyone tell you any different, and no one should be telling you what you should and can be doing.
I would totally agree with that, 100%. Um, it's a lot of people are starting to wake up from what I can see. Probably not at a fast enough rate. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But over the last couple of years, a lot of people are now starting to ask a hell of a lot of questions, which
Yeah,
is a good thing to see. It's a beautiful thing to see, I would say.
it is, and I really hope that a lot of people start having a look down the rabbit hole. Be careful, but have a look, see what's being done behind everyone's back, and hopefully we can all get together and like stop the powers that be from running us, and we can go back to a decent nice society where everyone's polite and no one's naughty.
Well, for what signaled or what heralded the fall of the Roman civilization, the Greek civilization, society did have to sort of destruct first before well, it took us to the dark ages, but then we've become a little bit more enlightened again.
True, and history always repeats itself.
It is, and it just seems to be a given fact. Maybe it's just universal consciousness trying a different method to,
True.
experiment with another outcome or something. I don't know.
But at the minute, all the rules are being ripped up. Basically, all the join from like all the contracts we've had with each other. Like, um, I think the worst thing I think Trump did was like come out of some contracts because Putin's doing exactly the same, and other countries and alignments and friendships are being changed, and that's the major issue of the world at the minute. And for a long time, they've said in America that it's looking like a civil war, and the way things are going, I think very possibly. I hope not, but very possibly. But unless we stand up as a community all together, they're going to take us our freedoms away. So we need to do something. At least if the public could go out there and have a little look, talk about it. I mean, everywhere I go, I'm hearing people talk about, oh, what's this? Why are they doing this? What's going to happen there? And it's like, well, look more into it, and you'll possibly find out. And don't just stand there and take the information in. If you can, that's if you can, go out and do something about it. Go out and tell other people. Go out and like demonstrate if there's demonstrations on stuff. Like if you can't do a lot, you can. The easiest and the best thing to do is talk, and the more people who know about what's going on and talk together, and actually with us all talking together, cluing it and gluing it together that actually this is what they're trying to do, then we'll get an answer, and we'll have a better life in future. Is
I would say
hoping.
so, and for some reason, as you started talking about going to demonstrations, what have you, there was an electrical buzzing sound,
Hmm.
like an interference, which I think is
Yeah,
rather oddly timed indeed.
CIA, mate.
I don't know, but I thought it was a little bit peculiar. But whenever you said talking, whenever you spoke about certain people moving away from contracts and tearing up contracts, it sort of takes me
Yeah,
back to the second episode with Soma Ara. She spoke about contracts being tore up and rewritten.
yeah.
But yeah, that's a topic for another day. Lee, thank you for coming on to the show today. It can make for uncomfortable listening for some, but that's the
Yeah,
point, I suppose. If there's anything or if there's something going on in the background that means danger for us, then it's well worth knowing about it.
yeah,
And I'm about to
totally.
take a coughing fit, so this is very suspicious indeed. But it's
Well,
very,
thank you.
it is worth knowing about because at the end of the day, knowledge is power, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, totally, totally. And we've all got the ability to gain that knowledge, and we've all got that ability to get that power. And I thank you for inviting me on here and speaking to your viewers, and hopefully they start talking about it if anything.
Well, it was good to have you on the show. And again, you spoke a lot about things that we should probably look at in another episode. So I'll take a look at doing that at some point. But before you do go, Lee, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me on www.neverastraightanswer.co.uk. I have a podcast that comes out weekly, sometimes every 2 weeks if we have issues. But we have a conversation about all sorts, from UFOs, conspiracy theories. My friend who I do it with, my co-host, he's good on time travel and ghosts and legends, and together we try and answer the questions that people put to us, and what we have as questions for ourselves, to see if there's any answers out there, and try and connect it together, give you the information, and see where it lies from there.
Definitely. Links to your podcast and website will be obviously stuck into the show notes here for others to find at their leisure. Lee Taylor from Manchester, thank you again for popping on to the show, and I hope to speak to you sometime soon again.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Chris.
Some of that was probably controversial indeed, and even I learned something new of the 15-minute cities. If this is a thing, which I have no doubt that it could well be, it is a very disturbing fact indeed, limiting what you can do and perhaps controlling civilization as a whole. Very small amount of people, I guess the 1% you could say, looking to control the 99%. Lots of food for thought in there, and definitely a lot of stuff in there that I encourage you to get out yourself to research and see what you can pull up on it. Chilling thoughts of what could be in store for us, but again, this is the point of the podcast, is to make you think and research these things for yourself. So, yep, that was Lee Taylor. Thank you very much for popping on to the show. I would like to speak to you again, because it sounds like you've got a hell of a lot of stuff to talk about. Anyway, let us move on to the last segment of the show. So just a reminder of the NIUFOS Open Day, which the details have now been finalised. We mentioned it in the last episode, but we'll go over it again. Due to the interest of the open day for NIUFOS, we've now secured a suitable venue. So remember, it's on Saturday, the 11th of March. That is when we're holding the open day. For anyone interested in joining us, or even just wishing to talk to us and have a chat and meet up with like-minded people, it's there for you. The day is yours. The initial details have changed, remember, where we had initially planned an 11 a.m. start at either the Maldron Hotel or the Crescent Arts Centre, but now we will meet at midday at the Accidental Theatre on Shaftesbury Square in Belfast. You'll find Ed, Janice, Johnny and myself there, and I'll have the podcast equipment with me, actually, so if you'd like to be a guest on our very special episode planned for then, remaining anonymous if need be, then I'd love to chat to you there, and you can be featured in that special episode. For further details, please contact us via our Facebook page. Now, we're coming to the celestial events. Not really much happening in the week ahead, but it is a per week to do a night watch, with the 7th being the full moon. Other than that, not much else to report. Unless you're living in the southern hemisphere, then the Wishing Well cluster is well placed for observation. Best viewed with a telescope, I believe, if I've done my research correctly. So it looks like that we might not be able to do the night watch after the open day. The weather does look pretty poor at the moment, and it's probably not the best viewing conditions with the moon having been out, but there we go. Unfortunately, that is just the way it goes sometimes. Listen, you've been listening to episode number 5 of the Close Encounters podcast. My name is Chris McMurray. Thank you very much for listening. Look forward to the next episode where I'm talking to a guest from the United States of America again, so please tune in for that. If you did like the podcast, please indicate so by liking it on whatever platform you're listening to it on. Visit our Facebook page, give us a like, give us a chat, and if you're in Northern Ireland at the time and you'd like to join us on our open day, please do. You'll be more than welcome. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you again next week.